Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey!
It's your president and your VP. And as promised, guys, here is the next installment of our little video series that we've been doing for nearly 3 years now. This time, of course, it's
The Land Before Time.
which premiered November 18th, 1988, produced for a budget of $12.3 million, and it made $84.5 million worldwide. Now, what's interesting about that number and this movie to begin with is that it is, of course, directed by Don Bluth, who this is his third highest grossing animated film behind
Anastasia and An American Tail.
Yep. So with that being said, it features the voice talents of Gabriel Damon, Candace Houston, Judith Barcy, who, once again, guys, if you saw our All Dogs Go to Heaven review, you know that we talked exclusively about what happened to that poor young lady. And it's even more tragic because the circumstances surrounding her passing were just a mere 4 months before this movie was released. And a little interesting tidbit is that her headstone actually includes her famous catchphrase from the movie. Yep, yep, yep. So with that being said, though, guys, let's get right into this. And it begins with a narrator who is explaining how...
Oh, you forgot the voice actor for Petrie, Will Ryan.
Oh, Will Ryan's the voice actor for Petrie, excuse me. But it begins with a narrator, and the narrator is explaining how the dinosaurs came to be, and then it focuses specifically on the birth of an Apatosaurus, who is, of course, a long neck, and his name is Littlefoot. We see his actual birth. And his mom is there, and she is just the sweetest thing ever, right from the get-go. You understand that this child, if you will, has the love and support of his mother and his grandparents, for that matter. But some things will happen. Some tragedies will occur.
Yep.
So Littlefoot is playing, and he's exploring and being a child, and he starts to try to make friends. And the first friend he tries to make friends with is a three-horn, who we know is, of course, actually a Triceratops. In fact, they call her just Sarah in the movie. And so with Sarah, he tries to play with her. Well, this is actually a mistake on Littlefoot's part, because Sarah's dad, he come stomping across, and Littlefoot's mom's like, you ain't gonna do this to my kid.
And he says to Sarah, three horns don't play with long necks.
Now, guys, the implication behind that is that we have casual racism in this movie.
Yep.
Now, we should also go on record that in no way, shape, or form are we boycotting this movie or saying that it deserves to be canceled, because, guys, those of you who actually believe those kind of things, do something better with your life.
Y'all crazy.
Because they're just films, okay? And they're just meant to be entertainment, all right? So with that out of the way, guys, so he takes her away, and then Littlefoot's like, but Mom, me and Sarah were having fun. Why can't we be together?
And she's like, well, we all tend to stick to our own kind.
Meaning that all the different dinosaur kinds just stick to themselves. So not only do we have some slight casual racism, we also have segregation in this kids' film about talking dinosaurs.
Yep. So after all this happens, Littlefoot and his mom are sleeping, and then he sees basically what amounts to a dragonfly. A frog eats it, by the way, and then starts hopping along, and then he follows it, and Sarah's like, that's my hopper. Sarah, and he like follows along to it, and Sarah is like, that's my hopper. And He's like, well, I found it first, and so they like follow the Hopper into a swamp, basically. But then, and only then, do we get to probably one of the greatest movie antagonists of all time, the Sharptooth.
Now, guys, the Sharptooth is scary. But here's the thing.
It's also kind of funny because it acts like a dog.
Yeah, it chases the two little dinosaurs, okay? And then the two little dinosaurs run into the thicket, right? And it's all covered with thorns and woods and whatnot, y'all. And so then
You see the T-Rex, aka the Sharptooth, kind of like sniffing at them
he's
like a dog.
He's all like and his teeth are all showed, and he's kind of growling like a dog a little bit too. It's awesome, guys. I mean, it's kind of out of place, but at the same time, it did help. So now that we have the T-Rex and it's trying to get to the two little dinosaurs, lo and behold, Littlefoot's mama comes a running. Now they have a knockdown, drag-out fight, y'all, between Littlefoot's mother and the Sharptooth. And it shows that the Sharptooth takes a bite out of Littlefoot's mom. And then she's animated with a chunk missing out of her back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's that. So, but here's the thing, that she puts up a good fight, and in the end, it's essentially a draw, that they basically battled to the death, because while this is happening, we have a great quake, a cataclysmic shift, a tectonic plate shift. They call it the Great Earth Shake. It's really just an earthquake, guys. So, the earthquake causes Littlefoot's mom to begin the slow process of sleeping with the fishes. And I mean slow. She doesn't just, and then that's it.
Yeah,
oh,
like
no.
Like, if you guys remember in The Lion King, it shows Scar throwing Mufasa into the herd, and then they then show the body. But in this one, it shows Littlefoot's mom getting mortally wounded like it did in The Lion King, but she's not dead yet.
No, because they have this full-on speech about how Littlefoot's like, Mom, please. And his mom's like, son, I'm about to pass on, but what you need to understand is that even though I'm not long for this world,
I'll still be in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so then his mom takes basically one final breath, and he's like, Mother!
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a sad scene. And then you see Littlefoot kind of just depressed.
And he's upset. He thinks it's unfair. He comes across this kind of old, grudgy dinosaur. He's kind of gruff, but then the dinosaur explains to him, it's not your fault.
It ain't his mama's fault, and it ain't his fault.
It's
because the great circle of life has just begun.
Yeah, guys, that. So, he's depressed. And there's these like little bird dinosaurs that try to cheer him up. There's this one that tries to cheer him up, but doesn't do a very good job of it. And then we meet Ducky.
Well, no, he gets a tree star from his mother, apparently. Like, his ghost mother comes from heaven and kind of like chucks him down a tree star. And then afterwards, he then meets Ducky.
Yeah, and Ducky is all like, hey, I want to be your friend. And
he's like, don't you know, long necks don't play with whatever you are. And she's like, well, I'm a long neck, see?
She stretches her neck out and her tail, and she's like, okay, fine, I'm not a long neck.
I'm a big mouth. I lost my family in the Great Earth Shake.
And so Littlefoot, basically taking pity on her, is like, okay, you can come along.
Yep.
And then we meet Petrie. And Petrie's main thing is that, well, he can't actually fly.
Yeah, like, it what's even funnier is the fact that, like, Littlefoot's trying to, like, grab food for Petrie, or for him and Ducky. And then we see, and then she's like, but the tree's talking. And he's like, no, it's not. And then Pichu just comes flying at him in his face. He's like, did I fly? She's like, no, you failed.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And the best part is they don't even like use proper grammar as well. And it's like
he tries to nuzzle up on top of Littlefoot's head, and Littlefoot's like, "Yo, what are you doing? Get off of my head, you weirdo!"
He's like, but I could guard the tree star. And then Ducky's like, yeah, he could guard the tree star. Yep.
And Littlefoot's like,
nope. You're gonna fly, Petrie.
So, then we meet Spike. And Spike,
before actually he met Ducky, he also ran into Sarah. And he's like, hey, maybe we should go, maybe we should stick together. And then she's like, no, I'm going to go my own way.
Because three horns don't play with long necks.
All right, well, three horns don't need the help from long necks. That's exactly how they even phrase it, too, in the movie.
And so Littlefoot's kind of like, fine, peace out. And so they go their own separate ways for a little bit, right? And then we get Spike. And Spike is basically a newborn dinosaur at this point because he's hatched and he's immediately hungry. Like his whole thing is that he doesn't talk and he's hungry all the time.
Yep.
That's his whole thing. He quickly eats all of the vegetation and they're like, oh, you got a spike tail. We'll call you Spike. And so then the group comes to 4.
Yep.
In the meantime, we've got Sarah, and she spots a sharp tooth. And she's like, I saw a sharp tooth. And they're like, there ain't no sharp teeth around here.
The sharp tooth is dead. I saw him die. And so then...
No, actually, because Sarah meets the same sharp tooth. And you see this... Okay, the sharp tooth is just lying there motionless. And Sarah, being brave, being full of confidence, being so full of ego, decides she's going to take a little run at the sharp tooth. So she runs back. And she's all, whoa, 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 whoa.
And then the sharp tooth
she gets right up on the sharp tooth. And then,
boom, targets directly at her. And she's like, it lets out a blood-curdling scream, by the way.
Yeah. And so,
and she's still trying to like warn them and everything.
She tries to warn them. They ignore it.
But
they have an encounter with the sharp tooth.
And
they barely escape.
Yeah. So they're sleeping in a sharp tooth print, but they didn't know it. And then you see the sharp tooth, and it like kind of smashes the leaf and stuff. And so yeah, that happens. And so they even get to. So afterward, get out of here. Okay, sorry. So we then see the third act breakup. It's a common trope in kids' media for this to happen.
They were skeptical and they were like, well, Littlefoot, you were wrong. So we're going to go hang out with Sarah and sleep with her. But unfortunately, like everybody has a sleep apnea. So they're all snoring and Ducky can't get no rest, right? So then she just moseys on over and curls up with Littlefoot. So then here comes Petrie and here comes Spike. And they're all 4 together. And Sarah. This is the turning point for Sarah, too. Because up until then, she let her pride. She let her ego. She let the casual, well, quite frankly, the casual racism taught by her father get in the way of the help and the teamwork that she needed. Well, with her being all alone and cold and frightened, she swallows her pride and she goes on over. And so then they're all together now. So it's a little while later. They're all together. This is important, guys.
Here's the thing before that, I want to talk about this because I thought this was interesting. But apparently, they had the third act breakup. They go one way while Littlefoot continues going the correct way. And apparently there was a scene where Littlefoot had found the Great Valley. And he went and then he goes back to go to tell his friends that they did that, and so that's the reason why he just appears all of a sudden whenever everybody's in trouble,
Yeah.
Like an actual Deus Ex Machina, but they had actually explained it.
So, it's a little while later. They're all together now. They formulate this plan that could only basically come straight out of The Godfather.
Honestly,
Because
though,
Littlefoot, he formulates this plan where they're going to bait the Sharptooth into literally sleeping with the fishes. Now, guys, those of you who are longtime viewers, you know that we use that as a euphemism, if you will, an allegory, because we don't like to come right out and say things, so we say them differently. So they literally make him sleep with the fishes because Littlefoot says to his friends, hey, with his scrawny arms, he can't possibly swim. So what we're going to do is one of you guys is going to be the bait, and they all look at Ducky.
She's like, no.
Next scene.
Next scene, you see, it's like some Scooby-Doo stuff, guys. Because it's like, how many times have you seen it? Scooby-Doo or Shaggy and Scooby are like, no, we're not gonna do it. Next scene later, they're baiting the monster, and then Ducky's like, no, you're not gonna get me to do this. The next scene later, we see her baiting the Sharptooth.
So they come up with this plan to lure the Sharptooth into this deep pool of water. And meanwhile, up on the ledge, Spike and Littlefoot are there. And they're going to push this rock off when they have lured the Sharptooth into the deepest part. And when the rock comes down, it's going to literally sleep with the fishes. And this is exactly what happens in a kid's film.
Yep.
So they defeat the Sharptooth and they make it to the Land Before Time. Well, not the Land Before Time. What am I doing? They make it to the Great Valley, and it's all full of water. It's lush and green. It's everything they wanted. Now, one of the core messages is they had to have the hope. They had to have the faith. They had to have the faith that the Great Valley was actually there. And they had to have the hope in order to keep going.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? What's really funny is that apparently these 5 members trying to make their journey to the Great Valley ended the racism.
Yeah, because the teamwork and the necessity of the situation forced them to bond together and become friends. Now they're all with their families now. Each one found their family. Littlefoot finds his grandparents. And then we have this other scene where we have Littlefoot's mother takes shape in the form of a cloud. This should sound very familiar. And she's basically all, follow your heart, Littlefoot. I will always be a part of you. Very familiar. And I think you guys know where that's actually from, because here we have this same type of scenario, the same setup, right?
The same story, basically.
A child loses his parent via extreme tragedy, has to overcome all kinds of odds, learns about the circle of life. Said dead parent takes the form of a cloud, starts talking to the child.
I think Disney took some liberties when making their movie The Lion King.
Think so too. But
Big liberty.
With all that said, guys, this movie is tremendous. There's not a lot more that we can actually say other than definitely 5 out of 5. What say you?
Also a 5 out of 5.
The story has heart. The characters are actually well written for children characters. It might turn some adults off, but listen, if you have children, you could sit down, watch this movie with them, and the themes that are explored in the movie with the tragedy and the loss and the depression and all of that, they gently hold your hand through this process, which is something that a 5 or 6 year old will definitely be able to grasp. And hey, guys, once in a while, it's okay to channel the inner 5 or 6 year old in all of us, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, with this being a 5 out of 5, there's only, but of course, as always, yes. you have seen The Land Before Time and you believe that it is the worst talking dinosaur animated film of all time, clearly.
Actually, if you think it's the worst animated film of all time, then clearly you've never seen the movie Food Fight.
But if that's not what you're thinking and you think it's the worst talking dinosaur movie of all time, clearly you have never seen most of the sequels to The Land Before Time. I'd say from probably 6 onwards. I haven't seen, well, actually, I probably haven't seen past 4, but I will say from 6 onwards, But anyways, guys, but
So,
hey,
here's
just remember,
okay.
we're just two idiots with a webcam. Our opinions do not matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So, having said all that, guys, we'll see you guys next time, live on June 10th. What's the review? Well, you'll just have to wait and see.
Involves a park.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to say.
Involves a park.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, there's only one thing more to say, and that is peace and love from Denny and Son. Bye.